Welcome to DCA Live, February 17th, Monday. I'm joined here with James, InvestAnswers, Mando, CTA Larsson, and myself, Marty Party. Guys, how are you doing around the table? DCA Live.
I'm doing okay.
An echo.
Oh, is it an echo from me, maybe? Hopefully not. Yeah, I'm
James,
doing okay.
How you doing? Mando, how you doing? Go ahead.
Feels like there's a lot of drama over the weekend in crypto, but Bitcoin's unchanged. Still feels like the crypto market cap is roughly unchanged. Just some pain in the trenches, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go. We're going to try and cover it all. Go ahead, CTO.
Yeah, we just chit-chatted a little bit before we started here. I think that a lot of people have once again gotten wrecked this week. And I think if you've not gotten wrecked, congrats, guys, everyone watching here, because yeah, it seems it's been brutal. I've seen so many angry tweets and things today and yesterday here. So people are clearly in pain, even though Bitcoin is at almost $100,000. So yeah, keeping the money is harder than making the money.
Yeah, all the time-tested lessons we've been trying to preach to people, I think, finally caught up to those that didn't listen or don't pay attention to the show. But we're obviously going to talk about the Melee thing. Obviously, we're going to talk about it. It's massive news. But we're trying to, the agenda today, we're going to cover the regular show. We're going to go over Bitcoin exchange reserves, the ETFs, state of Bitcoin itself, developments in crypto, all of the new news and regulations coming out last week, which have major effects on the market, especially for TradFi and their integration into digital assets. We're going to talk about, obviously, Libra, Stablecoin Act, Stablecoin Frenzy, and now Jerome Powell and federal support, new Trump appointees, very exciting, all the macro and government economic trends, obviously all the states, strategic Bitcoin reserves and digital asset legislation coming across and the effects that's going to have on all of our lives, all of the new grayscale ETF applications, and now the reclassification as commodities, which is huge. Obviously, FTX repayment plan starting on the 18th. That's tomorrow, Tuesday. Markets are closed today, by the way. And then some interesting side notes. We've got Meta doing 50,000 miles of undersea fiber optic cable, preparing for a digital storm. Obviously talking somewhat of AI and somewhat of crypto, but that's something to talk about. And then finally, China preparing for the 2032 asteroid hit in the mid-Atlantic Ocean. Now they're estimating a 1 in 43% chance of a major catastrophic effect, and they've created an initiative around that to protect the Earth. Anyway, that's kind of our show. Obviously, we're going to dig into each of these points in detail. Let's try and keep it unemotional. For all those people out there that are angry in crypto over the weekend, we hope that we can give you a small sense of relief and understanding that this is all normal, has all happened before. This is part of the cycle, and where do we go from here? So let's start off with Bitcoin. James, I want just to hand it over to you for a second. Maybe discuss Bitcoin exchange reserves, Bitcoin, where we are in your mind. You're so optimistic, and I love that. So give us a little bit of an overview. Where's Bitcoin? Tell us about Bitcoin right now. Oh, we can't hear you. You're on mute.
Lately, I'm not really the optimistic guy, the hopium king. And if ever you mention a price target of being like 129,000 on Bitcoin, people lose their minds. They say it's going to $1 million. But there's some very interesting things happening. I'll go through this real fast. I track OTC desks. I track exchange reserves, as you do, Marty, as well, and many of us. And things are in a pretty steady decline. This is, this chart, Marty, Crypto Quant. Bitcoin exchange reserves, all exchanges. And I know there's different versions of this from different analysts, but the point is the directional is going down fast. And the reason it's going down is pretty clear. We'll get to that in a second. OTC desk balance as well, also going down. Last time I calculated them all the wallets is 118,000 Bitcoin. But at the rate at which Bitcoin is being snapped up by the MicroStrategies of the world and IBIT and others, maybe sovereign wealth funds, it is going to disappear pretty fast. In addition, we'll talk about whale moves as well. Marty, this is one you shared, that much of the action is actually driven by big players. It's not retail driving the action here. in a very big way. And we can get back to this and we can answer any questions on the fly too. But this is what I want to talk about for a second, because who's sucking in all the OTC balance? Who is pulling everything off exchanges? Who is manipulating markets and why? Well, the IBIT has taken in a ton of money. Abu Dhabi, nearly $500 million. Goldman Sachs now have about 1.3 billion. State of Wisconsin bought 335 million in IBIT, and Paul Tudor Jones has doubled his bag very quickly. But it's not just that. This is from British Hodl. I'll wrap this up real fast. When you have a $1.7 trillion fund, they put $500 million in. That's only 0.02% of their bag. So there's a lot more to come. They're putting their toe in the water. And then you have MicroStrategy. A lot of people investing a ton there as well. Cantor Fitzgerald, by the way, Howard Lutnick is going to be building the sovereign wealth fund for the US, $1 billion. JP Morgan and CalPERS, 200 million, 12 states bought 335 million of MicroStrategy. Norway has 1% of MicroStrategy. This is the story. These are the people accumulating. While retail is freaking out, you got to look at the big picture. So hope that answers your question, Marty.
No, that's a terrific up. Yes. Go ahead, Mando.
The big one for me was the Abu Dhabi one, right? Abu Dhabi's sovereign wealth fund. Obviously, it's one of the states of the UAE. So, of which there are a number of very big, also Gulf sovereign wealth funds. The fact that they are moving into buying Bitcoin ETFs, I think is absolutely massive. Like the majority of these have been involved in some way or another via mining so far. There's been a lot of a move towards mining. There's some questions about whether it would even be allowed under like Sharia law. But the fact that Abu Dhabi is now buying Bitcoin ETFs, they have a lot of firepower. This was their first purchase. You're talking about potentially billions, tens of billions now potentially being bought by these ETFs. I think this was a very, very probably the biggest move of the weekend that we saw, maybe even the biggest move of the week, that we've now seen these official sovereign wealth funds moving into buying ETFs. And that just continues to point to Bitcoin being its own plane, its own buyers, its own technicals, very different from the rest of the market. Yeah,
absolutely. I think people, and everyone is always mystified by how much money was going into Bitcoin and these ETFs. And now we're kind of seeing through these 13 SEC filings coming out this year, who the players were, who actually invested. And it's absolutely mind blowing. Much larger portfolio allocations than we ever imagined. And obviously the Abu Dhabi one through their investment firm is huge. They have $1 trillion. Norway has $1 trillion. And the legislation, regulation along the way has changed. You can see we'll get into the states. Every state pretty much is now getting involved to allow their retirement funds and state funds to invest into the ETFs as well. It's very exciting news. CTO, any thoughts on Bitcoin overall?
Yes, if I can share the screen here. So, as we said, people are freaking out. There's like all-time low engagement in many ways. People are quitting crypto and everything. And you cannot see that in this chart. Bitcoin up here at almost 100,000 is in this well-defined range, which we've had many times before in this bull run. We had it here. We had the small one here, we had the big one here, and there's no breakdown, there's no top pattern, the trend is still up. This looks great, which is reflecting what you just said, that there are big people still buying here. Obviously, someone is selling also, otherwise it would be a straight line up. Who is that? I have no idea. Maybe it's whales who bought at 1,000, now 100,000. Maybe they planned for a long time. If Bitcoin ever goes to 100,000, I'm going to take some off the table. I don't know. Someone is clearly selling. There are big buyers as well. And price is in a pretty comparably tight band, even though it feels a lot when price moves up and down here. This is very undramatic and still a positive chart. Should this break down, that's different, but it hasn't yet. So this looks great. And I'd like to hear your thought. Who do you think are selling? Because someone is selling if there are big buyers and price is fixed. What's your thoughts? Is it price manipulation or?
Yeah, I covered a bit of that because I'm always obsessed with who is selling. So one of the theories is obviously OTC desks are being depleted. They went from a balance of 380,000 6 months ago to 118,000 today. That's where some of it's coming from. Then you have long-term holders, the Bitcoin maxis. They are moving to ETFs. They're selling their long-term holdings. For example, Plan B announced that publicly over the weekend, and it took the world by storm. It's like, oh my God, Bitcoin Maxi is selling his bags and moving to the TradFi world in the ETF function. And that was my theory once the ETF launched, because I saw a ton of long-term holders selling their positions that they held for 5 years, 7 years, 8 years, and moving it. And why would they sell before the halving? So the only reason is for safety, to move to an ETF, so they can leave their Bitcoin to loved ones and not have the risk of, I know people go mad when I say it, but self-custody is risky for some people. If anything could happen, then you lose a lot. So that's part of what's happening. And I think as well, market manipulation is a huge part of what's happening too. The market makers are keeping a lid on price so that people can fill their bags.
Yeah, I think we've got two narratives boiling right over the weekend. Actually, the other narrative, which we'll bring up later, we can touch on here a little bit, is that there's now questions about physical gold reserves. We saw Australia come out on the weekend and say, hey guys, it looks like you don't have as much gold as you told us. We're now underwater. Our paper gold is way overextended. And I think now you've got people calling to audit the US Fort Knox. So big accounts, all the way to Doge. So I think you're going to see the same thing. So gold and Bitcoin are sort of now starting to get similar narratives, which is, there's physical gold and there's self-custody on the chain Bitcoin. And then there's these derivative paper gold, traded gold, and Bitcoin ETFs. And, there's in the middle, this whole, people are shifting between the two. Which is better? Is it better to be self-custody? Is it better to be liquid and close to the market in case you need to sell? And so we're getting this whole dynamic. But I think together they form the store of value hedge against inflation model, which is now almost $20 trillion. It's a very exciting time. And I think the more gold and Bitcoin are seen as one, the better.
Yeah.
It validates Bitcoin as a store of value. It moves the risk off.
And Marty and everybody else here, just think for a second what would happen if it was discovered that paper gold exists. Fort Knox doesn't have 5 tons of gold. What will happen to the price of Bitcoin? It will nuke. It will go parabolic, and everybody will give up the gold ghost overnight like that.
I've been saying this since 2023, that paper gold is overextended, and there'll be a physical gold run. And that's what we're seeing now. It's called a physical gold run, where everybody that has, even my father called me, guys, on the weekend. My father is 90 years old. Said to me, Marty, I've got gold, a paper gold. Yeah, I own gold ETFs. Is the gold there? Do I own gold? Like, this is where people are. Now, what is their natural emotion is to get out gold. The validity of gold changes. But the paradigm is physical gold, the actual gold's value goes up. So like I said, there's this weird new paradigm where physical gold and self-custody Bitcoin price will appreciate, while paper gold and potentially paper Bitcoin's price will depreciate. Not depreciate, get sold off. So it's an interesting paradigm, and I love it. It's gamification at its finest. Anyway,
can I say one thing? Because
go ahead.
A couple of years ago, we interviewed a very interesting person who has like where you can hold self-custody physical gold in a vault in Singapore, and he made a point that really stuck with me. Like, the whole narrative with gold is that if fiat collapses one day, you have your gold. That's the narrative for gold. But if that actually happens, if fiat actually collapses, the whole ETF system, the whole traditional system will collapse. So the day that you actually need it, unless you have some sort of access to the physical gold, it won't work. Like, the very reason you got into it for safety won't work the day you actually need it. And that idea stuck with me, and I think it's correct.
I think everybody has exactly, CTO. And Mando, I'm going to give you a chance in a sec, but everything we deal with on a daily basis is priced with a base of US dollars. If the US dollar price changes, that changes the price. the base is in US dollars. We look at every pair, Bitcoin US dollars. We look at gold US dollars. We look at Tesla US dollars. We're very much tied to that base. If that base changes even slightly, the asset price changes. So potentially moving to a Bitcoin-based pricing model, which might make more sense. It's a very interesting time. Mando, what's your comments on this?
I think the original comment was who's selling the Bitcoin. And I do think there is clearly some contagion sell-off here from like people who are involved in other bits of the market that have been badly hurt. That are like, the cycle's over, I've lost money, like get me out, all that sort of stuff. So I think there's some selling there. There's probably been some selling from the miners, which like have continued to sell, although some of them have moved to a MicroStrategy style buying of treasury. As you've pointed out too, Marty, there's potentially been some selling from some of the exchanges. There's been some talk about, Binance reducing some of their crypto reserves. We always kind of find out about that stuff like ex post, but clearly there's been some selling. Maybe we'll find out about it later. What's clear though is the buyers seem to be kind of long-term buyers. Like once you start seeing sovereign wealth funds come in to buy, that's the sort of buyer that will never sell. So like I think I spoke about that a while ago, like the change in the composition of the seller versus the buyer. So if retail is selling, for example, because they're getting wrecked on meme coins or they're getting wrecked on other bits of the market, and you have the Abu Dhabi sovereign wealth fund buying, that also changes like the actual structure of the market for Bitcoin and moves it into longer term holders' hands, which is kind of what James was saying. Like that's potentially why OTC desks are running low on some of this Bitcoin stuff. Over a longer period, that change in composition, it really does start to have a big impact. So I think this is kind of a bullish changing of hands, even if the price is consolidating around this 100K level for Bitcoin. The fundamentals around Bitcoin seem to be very, very high. At the same time, like the rise in gold, gold does generally rise when there's stress in the market and people are worried about a few different things. Gold is hitting all-time high every single day. Now that's separate to maybe gold reserves are being questioned a little bit here, but that also points to maybe people are looking at some of the stresses in the stronger dollar, some of the the weakness in some of the currencies, and potentially a bit of a debt spiral. That's not being shown up in credit spreads, but maybe there's a concept here that like people are worried about the chance of a black swan going up higher in this world of a higher dollar. And that's feeding through into a weaker Bitcoin, because that can be seen as a risk-on product as much as it can be seen as a gold-like product.
Yeah, Mando makes a great point there. The term changing of hands, I think, is very valid. We're seeing a changing of hands from fickle, paper-handed retail to long-term institutional holders, sovereign wealth funds. We see now 32 states holding. These are people that, in law, have to hold it for at least 20 years, things like that, which is what we need. And I really pity people that get shaken out. I really feel for you. But you must understand, this is how markets work. If you look at early Amazon stock, it looked like a pump and dump like Libra. The first Amazon chart looked like Libra, guys. What is that? That's the retail people selling and panicking on the way down, and the institutions buying it up and getting very rich. Look at American Airlines, same chart. Look at Apple, same chart. Just don't be fooled for that initial pump and dump. That is retail being shaken out and institutions buying at the low. Just be very wary. That will always go on. Now, looking at the Bitcoin charts, CTO, definitely we've always spoken about that 200-day moving average down at, I think it's now up to 85,000. Definitely hedge fund traders and derivative market players and market makers are desperately trying to touch that number. I would say it's a 50% pullback, right? If you look at Fibonacci, which is around that 78 to 80,000 range. So there will definitely be manipulator pressure to try and hit that number. And they're playing into institutional buy walls, which are protecting, I think, at 95,000 right now. So that's really what we have to watch going into this. And they're going to use any FUD they can, people. So what happened on the weekend? We got tremendous FUD in crypto, right? The melee thing. Politify. We called it already on the show. It's a new thing. It's called political finance. And it played out perfectly. Here we see a political actor getting involved in digital assets, potentially being manipulated and scammed himself. But what is the effect? His opposition is using the opportunity to call him a scammer and to try and impeach him. This is how crypto is now tapping into the political side of things. And the market makers will use this as an opportunity to get out. Now, we can talk about market making in Binance if you want. I mean, I cover that in large detail. But maybe let's just stick to the agenda and we'll get around to it when we get there. I want Mando to talk about the Libra story. He's been following it very closely. Let's have a look at the slides quickly, see where we are. But that's a great intro. So just another note here on major investments in MicroStrategies. I want everyone to be very aware. Cantor Fitzgerald, CEO, is Howard Lutnick. Howard Lutnick is the Treasury Secretary of the USA. So any Tether FUD also needs to be mitigated at this point. Cantor Fitzgerald holds Tether's collateral. So any talk of Tether being, untrustworthy should be pushed aside at this point. The Treasury of the Treasury Secretary of the United States is now the manager of Tether's collateral. So anything Cantor Fitzgerald does is very much tied to Tether, very much tied to the US. And so this investment in MicroStrategies to me is also a very powerful move in trust and transparency. Got JP Morgan and then obviously 12 US states. A total of 32 US states have filed legislation around digital assets, both Bitcoin and crypto, some of them allowing in the legislation for their crypto investments to be staked. They're even using sophisticated words in the law, like staking. They want to stake their assets and produce yield. So you can see from us understanding early on crypto's advantages to the ability to make yield, to the institutions, to the sovereigns, to the states. Everybody is slowly evolving to understand the benefits of this technology. And we can see on this map here, 32 states now are talking about digital assets in some way, shape, or form. You can see the black areas are those that are probably mulling it over. But I expect most of these to be consumed out of pressure, peer pressure, and having to do it. And then overarching this entire map is the federal initiative to create a strategic reserve. And we've had mutterings again that they'll be using gold certificates, which is the original legislation written in the Loomis Fund, that the Treasury will have to hand in gold certificates in order to begin and start the Bitcoin reserve. We did also see Jerome Powell, right, the Federal Reserve Chief, in his Senate hearing, say the words, they will not stand in the way of banks supporting crypto customers. Don't underestimate that statement. That to me is one of the most bullish statements in the history of this asset class. The Federal Reserve is green lighting, rubber stamping crypto for banks. Banks are the wild card. When banks get involved in crypto, you will see a massive markup in this asset class. So don't underestimate that. Let's move on with the slides here. Okay, let's talk about the Libra story before we touch on Solana. I would like Mando. Mando, can you explain play by play? I know you were watching it closely. I was actually on the golf course, people, when somebody telegrammed me the Melee post, and I had to decide on my golf cart whether to post it as news or to ignore it. And I posted it. I said the Argentinian president endorsed this Libra token. So I was there in the beginning. Did I buy? No, I don't buy shitcoins. But Mando, tell me your story. Go ahead. You're on mute.
Right. I was actually in France on Friday when this all launched, and I was on a flight home. And pretty wild story. And it seems to have had a bit of repercussions for the general Sol ecosystem. But obviously after Trump, a number of different people have been launching coins. We've said that a while for the last few weeks on the show. There's been this hyper rotation, new people launching coins each day. And that had, I remember on this show last week, I mentioned the Central African Republic, which is a country in Africa, even launched a coin, right? So on Friday, Javier Milei, who is the current president of Argentina, he released a coin. And he released a coin alongside a US/LA-based crypto firm called Kelsia Ventures, which is run by this guy called Hayden Davis. He apparently met Javier Milei a few months ago, pitched the idea, won the contract, and then the original aim of the coin explicitly was to promote investment in Argentina. Now, this coin, very similar to some of these other bigger launches, ran very, very quickly, ran up to $4.5 billion because Argentina is one of the, well, it's not the biggest country in the world by any means, but it's very big in crypto, particularly in the Latin America world. Argentina is one of the leaders, let's say, in the crypto ecosystem, culture, all that sort of stuff. And it ran up very, very quickly. And then it appeared as though it came to like that 95% of the token was actually held by insiders. The coin was launched via Meteora, which is a well-known Solana DeFi project. And it was a one-sided LP, which is basically means they put in none of their own cash, but they did. And then they started to reduce the LP as it went higher. So the actual team, which is run by this Kelsia Ventures arm, they made about $110 million from this within the space of a few hours. As it came to light that so many insiders held, this thing started to crash to the point that eventually Milei deleted his tweet, said he'd basically been duped by this team, and the thing crashed all the way down to $300 million. Now that is a scam in of itself, right? Insiders made money via a team, and there was obviously this team had seemingly profited. It's unclear how much involvement Javier Milei had or how much knowledge he had of it, but he has since been attacked by his enemies. There's calls for him to be impeached. There's now a petition going. So, and the Argentinian stock index is down 7% today on the back of this. So this is not just a crypto thing. It's then come to light that not only were this team, they didn't just do this coin. They actually were involved in the Melania launch as well, which is the coin which came directly after Trump and was linked to Melania, who is the wife of Donald Trump, and involved in a number of other recent kind of pump and dumps, essentially, which has kind of been the meta, let's say, since the Trump launch, that there would be a new coin each day. It would go up, a bunch of different KOLs would make money from it, and it would be basically close to zero within hours. It then also came up to light that a bunch of KOLs, key opinion leaders, influencers, were paid to promote this coin, including Dave Portnoy, who said he kind of gave back what he was paid to promote, but then he was reimbursed around $5 million for losses that he made in the coin. So it's clear that there was, and this had been kind of tried and tested method, it seems, with Melania and a bunch of other coins that this group had launched. So a lot of a bad feeling around this launch. There was also implied that a number of Solana DeFi projects may have been made aware or close to a lot of these launches, close to the Kelsia teams. The closest, looking through the data, is Meteora, although the Jupiter seemingly knew about this launch beforehand. There's been talk about Moonshot being knowing about this launch beforehand. So, like, not a lot of good vibes from the general Solana DeFi ecosystem. All of those have denied it. All of those have said, we didn't really know that much. We maybe knew something was coming. We didn't know. But there's definitely a questions of like, who knew what, when, who may have profited from it, whether any of the teams had been involved in previous launches. And on the back of that, I think a lot of people who had been losing money in the Sol Casino, let's say, a lot of these like meme coins, a lot of these more risky coins on Solana, whether that's altcoins, AI coins, they feel as though they've been like, the game has been slightly rigged, at least since the Trump launch. And so what you saw is that Sol actually dropped quite a lot and continues to underperform now. So like Sol is down about 10% since this came out. It was trading around 203, I think, when this came out, and it's now trading in like the mid 180s. You've seen a lot of the Solana DeFi coins that were caught up in this down 10 to 20%. A lot of the Sol memes, AI coins down 30 to 40%. ETH, on the other hand, is rallying. BNB is rallying. It's definitely like, it's a shot, I would say. I wouldn't say it's like potentially a fatal shot, but it's hurt a lot of people in Solana, this, and a lot of people I felt wronged by what's happened. Maybe everyone was being naive beforehand. It's very, very clear that a lot of meme coins are launched with insiders who make money from this. Maybe everyone knows that they're part of the casino and you can lose all your money. But I think people just don't like the general vibe of how this was done, and that they feel as though they've been losing money for the last month on a rigged game. So I think there's going to be a process of healing to a certain extent here. I think we're about to probably see Solana DEX volumes go down quite a bit. What we have seen is like sold DEX volumes were at a 3-month low yesterday and the day before. So, and that's part of also the reason, obviously, Solana makes fees from that. All these DeFi protocols make fees from that. Maybe we see a bit of ramifications there. But I think Sol had been outperforming to a large extent for the last few weeks, even in this altcoin move. And I think now, even then, now that's being questioned. It's just a bit of a gut punch, I think, for a lot of people in Sol, this one.
There we go. James, what's your take? Love to hear your feelings.
To be honest, I don't track this stuff at all. I heard about it over the weekend. I do believe that Millet was tricked, and the Portnoy guy, he should know more. And he's been around kind of Bitcoin. He loves selling the bottoms and stuff like that and buying the tops. But he should know enough to be dangerous so as not to play with these meme coins. Like I think it was Jailstool Sports or something. It's just very bizarre. But what disappoints me is it gives the whole space a bad name. And it is actually fueling more separation between Bitcoin and the rest of crypto, which is a good thing. One day, I think Bitcoin, we mentioned at the very beginning, it will become much more of a risk-off asset. It currently is correlated with NASDAQ, aka risk-on, but that will change, I believe, in the future, especially if they find out Fort Knox doesn't have 5 tons of gold.
There you go. CTO, is that, James, you done? Anything else to add? Is that good?
Yep.
CTO, you've got a lot to say. CTO, go ahead. Let the people know what you feel.
Yeah, I can share the chart. And I mean, what Mando said here is definitely reflected. Sol was doing really well here a couple of weeks ago. Now it's kind of breaking this support against the dollar. I had it at 186. It's done it a few times before, but it has always immediately bounced back, like here, here, here. So let's see what happens now. But yeah, that's a change. Definitely a change today. So, and also on the BTC chart, it's kind of breaking this 0.002. Again, it has done it a few times, but it always bounced right back. So if there is a bounce back, it better happen soon. And like you said, there is retracement in many of these other projects as well that I feel are quality projects. Say Radium is backed up, though it's holding the range. What else do we have? We have Jupiter. And yeah, there's like a 10% drop in Jupiter today, though it's also holding its range here. But yeah, definitely there's been a market hit on Solana as a whole, as I guess as a result of this scammy project. And yeah, it seems like that definitely.
Okay. So I'm sure you're yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
And there's been one of the few up candles in recent memory in Ethereum, actually, but it's from a very bad situation. So too early, I think, to say that this is like a turnaround in the market and that people are moving to Ethereum now. It's also like, we have to remember, like, scammers are using good technology. They're usually the most, for some reason, human invention capability comes at its highest when it's someone scamming someone else. They are always using the best technology, the best chain and whatever. Okay, so the scammers are using Solana. And I think it was it Ivan who wrote the tweet, something like 2017, all the scammers were using Ethereum. And then, okay, now all the scammers are using Solana, and there's no scammers on Ethereum. That doesn't mean that the other chain is better. It just means that the scammers are usually at the forefront of technology. They're going to use the effective chain. It doesn't mean the
Can you
chain
do
is
me a
bad.
favor? Can you bring up the Libra chart on Deck Screener? Here, I'll send you the link.
Yep.
Marty, you can share it
Let's
too.
have a look. Yeah, I'll give you my oh, all right, I can share too.
I think.
Okay, 1 second. Present. Share screen. 1 second, people. Technical. Libra. There we go. Can you see that?
It looks like it's rebounding from what I can see.
Right. Well, just put Libra, like put it on a 1 hour. Okay. So let's go over the timeline of Libra. Just zoom out so we can see the whole thing from the beginning. Just go back out so we can see the beginning. Here we go. Okay. So in my opinion, guys, I've been in crypto since 2017. I've seen this. This is not new to me. People will orchestrate an elaborate pump and dump. And the way they do it is they will find a highly hyped narrative, a person, an individual. They will use a trend. And in this case, they used Politify, the Trump token success. You saw they minted Millennia in the same way, did very much the same thing. And then they pay these calls, these influencers who take money gladly to post on their pages because they get a lot of engagement. For them, it's a win-win. And you can see they all bought in right in the beginning. They knew the date and time. Pretty much all they really need to know is when. When is the coin launching? And then they make their entries, and you could see in the beginning, they all made their entries, and there's your big green candles. The problem to me is that all of the degenerate gamblers that are waiting for the next thing all pile in there buying the top. And you can see them, they bought the top all the way up to $2 there, $2.50. Now, that's your first mistake in meme coins. You never do that. You don't buy the top. The way meme coins work, if you want to play meme coins, is if you don't know something is launching and have alpha in the first 10 minutes, you don't get involved. You wait for the first pullback, using Fibonacci's around the 0.5 or even lower. And they didn't do that. And there you can see all the insiders, once the Melee story started to evolve, all started dumping. And there's your next problem. Calls dump, right? These influencers, they don't hold. They're not really investing in Libra. Libra project, if you look at the website, looks like a joke. It took me 5 minutes on my cell phone on a golf cart to realize the team behind Libra was a joke, had never done this before, and were making key mistakes like not locking the liquidity. You can see there the liquidity is not locked. So I would never invest more than $1 in this coin. So there's your first mistake. Gamblers invested in this thinking it was the next Donald Trump token, driving up the price on low liquidity. And if you understand the way that crypto works, when you have low liquidity at a high market cap with such momentum and large players start selling those $1 million entries, it's going to have massive price impact. And you saw it drop the price to 50% within a few minutes. So go along to where it dropped to 50%. There you can see. Now all of the holders start going, well, why did it drop 50%? Because they don't understand this. They start losing confidence. Melee removes the post. Boom. They all start dumping. You get panic selling. And it went all the way down, I believe, to a 90% correction, correct? There you go. There's your panic sell from your degens. And there you are. You go down to literally a 95% drop. That's a typical meme coin. So as far as I'm concerned, this is just a typical meme coin. Now, the mistakes made. Let's talk about the mistakes made. First of all, the technology worked flawlessly. Okay? The technology did not crash. The technology worked great. You can't blame a database for the people that use a database. The database worked fine. The problem, I think, was Melee firstly didn't vet this coin. He posted, probably he was drunk at the time. It looked like a drunk post to me, the way it was written. He was probably uninformed and was probably scammed. I think that's the first thing that happened. That's why he removed it the minute he realized he was scammed. But the important part about this to me that I actually knew about was in Argentina, I mean, you can just grok it. Melee has been talking about making a coin since Trump. Okay. In fact, he used words like Bitcoin Argentino. So I can just read you if you just grok it. Before the Libra scandal, Melee had expressed interest in launching a crypto himself. He had discussed the idea of creating a digital currency backed by Argentinians' gold reserves, which he called the Argentinian Bitcoin or Bitcoin Argentino. that was part of his broader economic vision to reduce the influence of traditional central banks and promote economic freedom through crypto. However, the Libra token incident seems to be separate from this concept. It was not officially launched. So understand, when this thing came out and he tweeted it, not only did degens jump on it to try and get a quick buck, but everybody in Argentina, all the hedge funds in crypto, they really believed this was the coin he was talking about. Now, were they right? No, they were wrong. Were they deceived? Yes, his post was pretty deceptive. But was it a scam in that case? I don't know if that's a scam. Okay, you made a mistake. But at the end of the day, this was not just out of nowhere. A lot of people knew this was coming. So when they saw it, they went in with millions of dollars within the first 10 to 20 minutes. And they sold the top. And it brought it down. That's what happened to Melee. Okay,
I think we kicked this to death.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, the big problem is these cabals, these hedge funds that use, like CTO said, the fastest, latest, highest liquidity, highest user base network to do their scamming. They're on Solana because 90% of blockchain transactions are currently on Solana. 9-0. There's literally no other transactions going on. So obviously they're going to use Solana. Okay? You can't blame Solana. Now, if the Meteor and Jupiter things are proven that there were insiders that entered early, that would be pretty deceptive for those things, but they're not Solana. Those are just third-party applications that build on Solana. You can't blame the database. But at the end of the day, I think this is a great opportunity for people to learn. Don't enter blindly. Don't enter your life savings into some speculative bullshit. Hold your layer one network tokens and stop handing them over to these cabals like idiots.
Or call Mando first.
Okay.
Cool. Let's get back to the agenda. Let's leave Libra because people are just bored hearing about it.
That's Libra. Let's move on. So let's talk about the actual Solana network, because it didn't fall over under this again, under Trump and Melee. It's performed beautifully as a technology. Remember, this is an open source software. It's worked perfectly well. And it's actually in the midst of its biggest bullish news of all time, which is 5 Solana ETFs literally on the doorstep of being approved. In fact, we had Larry Fink go on television and say he believes the Solana ETF will be approved in February, which is only 11 days left. So this, I believe, is going to be probably one of the biggest tech stock Wall Street events in a long time. Not only because it's Solana, the money-making machine in blockchain, but also because it's in kind. Okay, remember, Ethereum and Bitcoin were launched under the old SEC 1.0 under Gensler as in cash, which goes against the whole blockchain ethos, hides and makes opaque transactions. This would be the first in-kind ETF, which means that we would actually be able to see transactions of basket creation and redemption on-chain, which is a massive move in transparency for Wall Street. So these events are going to happen. So we've got Bitwise 21 shares, Grayscale, and Van Eck all waiting for approval. And at the same time, we'll talk about it. We've got an entire new government regulator, all pro-crypto and much more, moving faster than we've ever seen. So this may happen faster than the thought Q3, Q4, 2025, and we may see these things approved any day now. Okay, we have Coinbase futures. Coinbase, Brian Armstrong tweeted that he's announced that he wants to start listing Solana futures on the Coinbase platform. Now remember, this is a huge thing as well. Futures control prices. The biggest problem we have in crypto is there is one dominant future exchange, which is Binance. And so their manipulation of their futures casino affects the spot asset prices. As it moves up and down to liquidate their gamblers, so does the asset prices, so does the speculation of the spot holders. Who's selling? Who's buying? It's Binance doing that. So any move by regulated futures exchanges like the CME, Deribit, or Coinbase to introduce dominance and volume in the futures of these asset classes is good news for the asset classes. So this is a very positive move in my perspective, and I hope that they see tremendous success. those people that are trading Binance Solana futures, please move to Coinbase Solana futures. At least it's regulated and under the watchful eye of the SEC, on the CFTC at this point. Sorry, the CFTC. So that's the second big news for Solana. The third big news, we got word that David Sachs, the crypto czar, is engaging with industry experts, Multicoin Capital, Jito, the best in the business, about and advocating with the SEC to include staking and liquid staking into the ETPs and ETFs. So this discussion, this news, triggered many things over the course of the last days of last week in the regulatory world. We saw Grayscale start filing for in-kind Bitcoin and Ethereum ETF conversions, and we saw Ethereum ETF filing to allow 21 shares to stake their Ethereum. Now, understand, these are huge moves. These are moves that weren't allowed by the previous SEC. These are huge moves. It means the issuer, Grayscale 21 shares of Bitwise, with a large pool of Ethereum and Solana, can stake it now and earn yield, which means the shareholders may get a dividend. Okay, these become dividend stock. Go ahead, James. What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I was just about to say, yeah, this seems to be the main thing. So if you are worried about what's been going on in Solana, which I think you should be, like we can say Libra was, of course it has all the hallmarks of a scam, and maybe Melee wasn't involved, but like this will have an impact on Sol DeFi volumes, I think, for the next few weeks. I wouldn't say it's the end of like a lot of this more left curve risky casino style activity, but it's going to definitely affect it, particularly if other people are involved. It's interesting to say though that like a lot of other assets are really high and have none of that stuff. XRP is trading close to ETH right now on the hope that it gets an ETF and that the lawsuit from the SEC gets dropped. So maybe it's okay. Is basically what I think you can say with Solana here. Like maybe it's okay that some of this more degen Solana activity, where often it's actually like just money being given from Peter to Paul, right? It's just money going from retail to Pump.Fun who's selling the Solana. There's no like maybe net use of a beneficiary there. Maybe it's okay that some of that dies off for a little bit. XRP is doing absolutely fine on the back of just an ETF rumors. And so I kind of feel like maybe this isn't that bad for Solana. Like I wouldn't get overly bearish on Solana. You can get bearish on certain things happening on Solana and still be very, very bullish on the long-term future of Solana. And maybe it takes a little bit more time. And maybe instead of being dialed up to 11 on degen activity, we go down to 7 out of 10 on degen activity, and maybe that's a good thing. So what I do think is like, don't like completely freak out. Solana has a very good chance of coming out of this the other side. And in a month's time, we could have a Solana ETF with staking, which is just like a super bullish onboarding mechanism here for Solana. So right now, it doesn't feel that great. Solana's 179 right now. But like, I don't think it's going to 120. And I think if it goes down to 150 and the unlocks are done in a month and you potentially have an ETF plus the FTX repayments start tomorrow, like I think it's a very bullish scenario.
Here we go. James, your thoughts?
Just this little post from Solana News. It's just FireDancer, like the chain already does more than all other chains combined. All the transactions there. It is the new 800-pound gorilla, and it's being developed faster than any other chain. But what do you guys think? I'll give it to CTO. The impact of FireDancer, literally with all this adoption. We said middle of last year that these meme coins were kind of a stress test for the network. Yeah. And CTO, with your experience with telco networks, talk to us about how important that was.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm really impressed by Solana. You and I, James, we talked about it years ago. Like, keep working on increasing capacity, increasing performance, reducing cost per transaction, and so on and so forth. That's what I feel that Ethereum should have done over the past 5, 6, 7 years, and they haven't. They put another strategy with the L2s, and that's how it was going to scale. while maintaining that you can run a node on a very low-cost computer. That was their idea. And I always felt that most people don't care. They don't care about which one is more decentralized exactly, depending on how you count. And I know that, there's arguments, pros and cons, but most people just don't care. They care about performance, they care about time to finality, and they care about cost. How much are they paying for a transaction? How long does it take for it to finalize? And we saw that already in the last cycle. That's why BSC was really one of the big winners. That time, no one argued that they were super decentralized. I mean, they literally had Binance in the name of the chain. And but people still used it because it had all those things. Then came Solana, which exactly this ethos of lower cost, high transaction speed, a simpler network, not having like layers where you have to bridge back and forth, but everything is like in one data set. So it's easy to use and clear and so on. And then I feel that what Solana has kept doing now is that they keep digging, keep working on that. How do we keep increasing performance? How do we keep increasing reliability, like having more software stacks running at the same time? And how do we, we need to build an own core network maybe to increase performance, cannot run it over public internet only, and so on and so forth. So I feel that they're doing exactly the right thing. It's exactly how we would have thought in telecom. Like, okay, now we doubled performance. How do we double it again? How do we double it again? How do we double reliability? How do we double the speed? How do we double the capacity? One more time. I feel that that's exactly what the Solana ecosystem is doing, and that's exactly what the Ethereum ecosystem is not doing on layer 1. And I feel that that's been a catastrophic mistake. That's been the mistake for them. And Solana is doing it right.
So just out of interest, Javier Milei just reposted a post on Libra with clear instructions how to buy it. So it looks like after talking to his team and legal people, he's changed his tune, and that's why we're seeing the Libra pump back up again. So just remember, this might have been not a scam.
Well, it was a
and
scam.
That is the
they took out 110 million. I don't know if that's the right call. I really don't know if that's the right call here. I actually don't know how this ends, but that team that launched it took out $110 million. So maybe that he sees that's the best way.
If you advertise something as being a fundraising vehicle and don't take our money, how are you raising funds?
Yeah, I think there's a difference between keeping the LP and reducing it. Like this team,
advertised to make people rich. This wasn't advertised to make people rich. This was advertised to raise money to help Argentinian small companies. So let's compare it to the Trump launch. If they don't sell, they don't make any money.
Let me just compare it to the Trump. Yeah, but let me just a minute, Marty. Let me just compare it to the Trump launch. Yeah. The Trump launch, they locked 70% of all the tokens, right, from the team, and they kept the size of the LP the whole time. This Argentina coin, 95% of it was held by insiders, unlocked. They added 0 to the LP to start, and then they started reducing the LP as time went on. They also then paid a bunch of KOLs to tweet about the coin. Like, there is night and day, in my opinion, between Trump and this launch. They are done by very different teams.
I'm looking at the contract right now. They haven't touched the 50% wallet. They haven't touched the 20% wallet. So 70% is technically untouched and still held.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's still locked, though. But the founder has gone on and said they took out 110 million.
No different. Trump wasn't locked either.
It was locked.
I think the problem here was not that the problem here might not have been the launches. It might not have been Milei. I'm just playing devil's advocate, guys, that you need to understand in crypto, it's if you lost money, you're going to point fingers. If you didn't lose money, you can look at it with more, unbiased opinion. It looks like the KOLs were the ones that sold.
Anyway, the point is nobody in this audience should buy this coin. It's embarrassing for Milei, in my opinion. I had a lot of respect for Milei. I have no idea why he's doubling down. It's bizarre. But anyway, we've got 3 topics left. Let's try wrap in 6 minutes. An hour.
He's definitely doubling down. Okay, let's carry on.
Let's go to another big story is, let me get this right, FTX repayment plans. Mando, you hit on this. I think this bears talking about a little bit more. Can you add more light, like it's happening today or tomorrow?
Well, this is the two halves of the same. They FUD the Solana unlocks, and then at the same time you have a much bigger FTX repayment plan happening at the same time. The reason why FTX is perhaps bigger for Solana is because a lot of that funds was in Sol or Sol ecosystem coins. So a lot of it is seen as a bit more like a Sol stimulus, let's say. But yeah, the repayments are going to start tomorrow. If we know anything from other exchanges, this can last for a long time, rather than be instantaneous. So I don't know exactly how long this is going to take, but it's meant to probably take months. But yeah, all claims under 50 grand are going to start tomorrow, and then some of the bigger claims, which to be fair is like the majority of the FTX, are the ones above 50k. So the majority of the 18 billion or so it's going to be given back, or is it 14 billion, is above 50k. But it's good to start to see money to come back, and hopefully this goes back into buying coins in crypto. But yeah, this is going to be one of the more bullish events of this week.
Yeah, what do you guys think? If you had lost money in FTX and were getting money back, what would you do? Would you buy
It'll
crypto
go
again?
back into the Sol ecosystem. It has to. That's what people missed out on, and it's a substantial amount of money. But again, if it peters out, that could be consistent buy pressure for Sol and Sol ecosystem tokens. I think the people that were in this in the first place, they will not be rushing out and buying Bitcoin. And this could be the catalyst. Yeah, no, it's going to be a very slow process. So
that's right. I actually know people that started to get their payments into their accounts already. It's quite interesting. Okay, let's move on. So we spoke a little bit about some left field things. Let's touch on those. A lot of people that don't know about this, but this is a massive project. Metcha just announced this project Waterworth. I wasn't aware of it at all. Has anybody else heard of this before on the call?
Yeah,
you have.
And it's funny. I'd like
to go ahead.
Global telco networks, again, back to CTO. It's like everything goes back to networks. This is huge. It's a monstrous investment. And I'm wondering, my first question is, why bury cables under the ocean when satellites are a better solution?
It's a good question. I've actually worked with some submarine cable projects. It's a massive industry. There's like specialized ships that are laying these cables and repairing them when some water event has disrupted them and so on. But yeah, the whole earth is covered with these cables deep in the ocean to connect the different continents.
I believe fiber optic cable is still, vastly more performant than satellite, right? So
exactly, it's kind of easier because you can put a lot of fibers in one cable that's pretty small, and then it's all parallel, right? There's no impact on spectrum or anything like that. It's pretty cheap, extremely high performance, and very reliable. So the connectivity between different countries and continents is actually mostly run through these cables. Putting more of them will really increase the capacity, because maybe you don't feel that if you sit somewhere in the US or you sit in Stockholm or something, you kind of you feel that the internet is super fast everywhere. But then if you go somewhere else in the world, it feels really slow. And it's not like the local infrastructure, like the 5G base stations or something. They are the same as in the US, and the local fiber network is the same. It's a connection from the country to the rest of the internet that is slower. That's why it feels so slow when you're traveling around. And these kind of projects is really what's fixing that. So this is fantastic.
Can you detail that out a little bit more? Because I used to trade some of the cable companies, and I remember the vast majority of the developing world, for example, doesn't have broadband, or a lot of Africa, for example, because either to do with the land or to do with the cost of actually putting the cables in the ground, and hence why you get, that's why these SpaceX rockets have seen a big market there in some of the developing countries. Are undersea cables meant to be cheaper than that? I actually don't know the difference between undersea cable price and these new SpaceX rocket prices, or
I mean,
like,
these
very good
cables,
question.
they kind of connect the whole country. So like the whole continent gets another connection or something. Then, of course, there's a service provider who make use of that and put the actual light in the fiber.
Nando, I think more interesting is the business plan of Meta here. I mean, Meta will now create an alternative to the current fiber under the ocean, which is pretty much owned and profits AT&T, Sprint, and the current backbone people, the internet providing people, the establishment. It's kind of like legacy telecom. This is Meta saying, we're making our own dedicated approach. It's probably going to be technically better. There's probably an innovation in the actual technology, the systems, and maybe Meta will get privileged use of it. Now, what do Meta have planned that would require this? You see, it's a gateway into Meta's thinking technically going forward. They know they're going to need insane bandwidth and low latency. So I think this is a huge play by Meta.
It's a huge play. And just for clarity, this is connecting service providers. It's not like connecting into someone's home or something. It's like the whole service provider network that gets improved with these kind of projects. And also an advantage is latency. Like if you send something up in space and back, there has to be some latency. And yeah.
I would term this internet improvements underpinning the problems we faced, which is as internet to financial transactions on chain hit a threshold, the internet becomes the bottleneck. The current internet, those existing fiber optic cables, these interconnections between countries becomes the bottleneck. And so what you're seeing is these are initiatives to front run that problem by increasing the bandwidth of the internet. You've got this Meta project, Waterworth. You've got obviously Elon Musk with his SpaceX initiatives, and you've got the 00 project, which is trying to create dedicated blockchain internets. So this is all good news. To me, this is extremely bullish for the internet as a whole. I thought this was very interesting, and I hope people look into that. And then the last thing to touch on out of left field, James, do you want to talk on this?
Yeah, I was just going to say the risk to satellites could be the asteroids knocking them out of the sky, where maybe the underwater can survive. Who knows? But before the China planetary defense, I have been reading the mathematical odds of a satellite hitting Earth by 2032. And I don't know if it's just mainstream media spreading fear, but there always has been a 1% to 2% chance. And I think it's worth considering. So...
Right. So basically, this is China creating this official TCP planetary defense initiative, much like a NASA, a government-funded operation. They see the risk now of this asteroid in 2032 hitting the Earth somewhere in the South Pacific. They're saying at 1 in 43, which those probabilities have come down drastically from the 1 in 1,000, which was the previous estimate. So Chinese scientists and explorers have now deemed that the likelihood of this impacting the Earth are significantly higher than we thought. And we hear nothing from the West here. We're not told anything. We're still dealing with the Mexican border and stuff like that. So in my perspective, this indicates that as an Earth, as a human race, we have larger systemic existential risks. And we should start not focusing on our stupid solvable on-land problems and start looking at our real problems, which are going to come from space. Anyway, that's it. We're running out of time here, guys. I know it's been a heated debate, and that's good because it is a heated subject. But crypto, to me, has never been more bullish. Never been more bullish. We've got a US government where literally every role is pro-crypto. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, we were just chatting with the people in the community here, the liquidation levels down to 95K on Bitcoin, maybe even lower, a little bit lower, and 178 and 178 on Solana should be the floor. So watch those levels carefully, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I mean, if you look here behind me, you'll see these are the lowest Binance liquidations. So Binance has sold positions on Sol, which will liquidate at 174. Bitcoin is at 92,700. Doesn't mean it's going to hit those, but that would be the ultimate target if there's not enough buying pressure to support it.
Exactly.
Okay, so wrap-ups. Mando, wrap-up for the week. Optimistic, pessimistic for next week?
I don't know. I feel like this fallout from this stuff might last a little bit longer. But I would say in a month's time, or at least the right now, everyone's trying to dunk on Solana, right? The casino is getting dunked on. The unlocks are getting dunked on. Just the general vibe. It reminds me of FTX. Like if you're in crypto every single day, like I haven't seen a worse vibe than this from crypto Twitter since FTX. That being said, like if you take a step back, at least for Solana, a lot of the fundamentals remain incredibly strong. In a month's time, we could be talking about, like I said, the end of these, or getting through a large amount of these FTX repayments, plus an ETF, plus maybe a healing of the trenches, and maybe we come out of it stronger the other side. I'm definitely not bearish on Bitcoin, but it'll be interesting to see. This is the first time that ETH has rallied, right? And potentially the market doesn't nuke, right? Normally when ETH rallies and everything else is unchanged, we've seen a bit of a nuke for the last 6 months, year even. Like ETH is like the final thing to rally, and then everything nukes. Let's see this week. I think it would be bullish generally long term if ETH has a better hold, or it doesn't just feel like such a bearish asset. So yeah, I'm rooting for the market not nuking, even with ETH rallying now.
James, bullish, bearish for next week?
Yeah, I'm actually a little bit in the middle to bearish, and the reason is more because of the macro. There's still the overhang of tariffs. If you look at, deflation in some sectors is there. Copper is weak. Gold is rising, which is an alarm sign. Oil is declining, which means recession flag is there. Retail sales in the US are in the toilet, absolutely in the toilet. CPI is going up in the US. People aren't sure of US policy making. Bitcoin is Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin could dip down to the low 91K again, either driven by market makers manipulation or just uncertainty in the market. I think Feb is normally historically a very good month for Bitcoin, and it might not be this time around. I don't mean to be negative, everybody. It's just the macro signs I'm seeing and the uncertainty are pretty darn scary.
There you go. CTO, bullish or bearish for next week?
Yeah, I'm going to watch this range for Bitcoin, just like James said, from 90,800 up to 106,100. I think the breakout direction will be telling. That's my plan. So if it breaks downwards, I'm going to be more careful. It hasn't yet. If it breaks upwards, I think that's the breakout. Then we go up to the next major level from here. And I'm just going to sit and watch carefully. Wait aggressively. That's my plan.
And I forgot to mention one thing as well. Liquidity is rising around the world, but at the same time, it's not hitting the pockets of the retail investor that could buy things like Solana because they're going into meme coins, etc. So we don't have that liquidity there right now. But there is a glimmer of hope, and that is the FTX silver lining that could pump liquidity and trigger a small alt season. So that is my positive balance to my negative comments.
There you go. Let me wrap it up with my perspective. I mean, I've never been more bullish. I understand very clearly. Actually, to me, nothing's really changed. The liquidation levels look pretty normal. Yes, they're running at them today. They're using the narratives, the bad narratives, which they'll do. But I would say Bitcoin holding 95 is the next level to watch. If Bitcoin holds 95, I think we move back up to, test the 100,000K range. But it's all macro, like James says. And the reverse repo is completely drained. The reverse repo is at 50 billion, the lowest it's ever been. We've got quantitative tightening in the US remains. We've got Jerome Powell, giving us numbers which show that things haven't really changed. There's no, be patient. We're not going to drop rates. We've got Trump pushing him to drop rates. I think until the expression "don't fight the Fed" has never been more true. At this point, we've got to wait for quantitative easing, or at least for the end of quantitative tightening, like the rest of the world. China did start to print money, but the US is still at a deadlock. They haven't announced the raised debt ceiling. Personally, I believe we're looking at March, the beginning or the end of March, to start to feel some macro loosening, some different verbiage from Jerome Powell, and then ultimately a big money print. There's no way they can't not print money. They're in too much debt. They have to refi and roll over $7 trillion of debt, and there's no way they're going to roll it over at the interest rates they have now. They'll have to bring those rates down. They'll have to print money to backstop the banks. So wait on that, guys. Accumulate using these bearish narratives. These narratives the market makers will use to bring the price down. That's your signal. Buy up quality assets. Don't sleep on it. I promise you in a few months' time, we'll look back at this day and laugh, because this is just another classic case of bad actors in crypto ruining the sentiment and taking people's quality assets for themselves. Don't lose your quality assets. Stop trading meme coins. I've been saying it for a year. Stay the hell out of it. If you play meme coins, play with $1, $10. It's a lottery. Do the same thing. These are not investments. There's nothing behind them. Okay, that's a wrap for our show. We'll see you next week. InvestAnswers, James. I got it wrong today.
Mando has a quick closing word.
Mando, thank you so much for your insights today. CTO Larsson, excellent work. I love your channel. And I'm Marty Party. I'll see you guys around. Have a good week.
Thanks, Marty. Thanks,
It
Mando.
was. Thanks.
CTO. Cheers. Let me see. End stream to the end. Boom. Yeah, it took a while to end.